what is this? What does it mean to be human? Okay, I get it. There's good parts and bad parts, and there's other people, and there's things to do. But surely there has to be some purpose or meaning to it. So I got on that journey pretty early in life.
Dr. Marcus Robinson is a veteran of community development, social justice, and transformation. As managing director of the Collaboration Theater Company in Chicago, he uses theater as a community development change agent to address Chicago's most critical social issues, such as substance abuse, racism, and violence. Dr. Robinson has served as president and CEO of the Consortium of Community Development, Citizens for Progressive Change, and Wetware. His firm, Social Innovation Group, served as the principal consultant working with corporate and governmental clients to create inclusive cultures. Robinson holds a Doctor of Clinical Hypnotherapy degree from the American Institute of Clinical Hypnotherapy.
I probably fit in the mold of an adult child of an alcoholic, right? So back in the day, we didn't really call it alcoholism or anything like that. We just said cat couldn't hold his liquor kind of thing, because everybody drank, everybody, did what they wanted to do to kind of release their stress kind of thing. But interestingly enough, my dad had he didn't drink often, but he had whatever that gene or whatever it is that just could not process the alcohol in a particular way, and that made it, not be alcoholism if there was such a thing. He had so many things suppressed inside of him that once it got to a certain point, out from him would flow this vitriol and upset and anguish and angst that he would just dump into everybody's life closest to him. It's kind of thing. It's you hurt the people you love the most kind of thing. And so that really consumed the first 8 years of my life, and it ended with a pretty tumultuous, family scene with him, leaving the family and doing a lot of, damage to each one of us in their own way. If you live with a person long enough, you kind of know where that sweet spot is. Yeah. And he was brilliant at knowing what that was. And so everybody got their wound, so to speak. And so I didn't escape that. That's when I, recognized that, no matter what's going on, it really isn't safe here. The way things aren't the way they should be was what I walked away from that with, and was pretty lonely, pretty, you shut down. I did. And it had a differential impact on all the kids in the family. There were 5 of us in the house with my mom. At that point, she was really ill, and so they were going through the stress of her mental illness and her physical illness and lack of money and too many things to take care of and no help that they would accept, I would say, or reach out for. Because there was a system around us. Now that I look back on it, but he didn't use it. And it had a different impact on all of my brothers and sisters. And so what it did for me was shut me down, emotionally, intellectually, socially. And I got lucky and had some perceptive adults. My second grade teacher, Miss Ford, big, beautiful, rotund, brown, full-bodied, curvy, as we would say these days, black woman, salt of the earth, soulful, had invited in a music teacher to do some specialty stuff with us in that class. And so that day I was, head down on the desk in the back corner, not, just withdrawn. And she said, "Come on up here, babe. Why don't you come up here and sit at the front, because I know you're going to really, really love this and get something out of this. And you be the best little boy you can be with Miss Fetterman," the woman that she was leaving me with, "and everything's going to be all right." And long story short, Miss Fetterman was an extraordinarily gifted music therapist. And she taught music education in school, so she really poured into me. Not only that day, but every day she would stop by, see how I was doing, kind of stuff, and then and keep me involved in different activities. Stay here in the after school. There's nobody at home. So you stay with me and that kind of stuff. And then when she would would leave to go home. She dropped me off. So that was like a big deal. So to have that kind of adult presence in your life at a time of real trauma, puts a little safety back in the system, so to speak. And interestingly enough, she was that way with me throughout my elementary school years. And she took me to my junior high school that she was not going to be working at. She was my elementary school person. And she took me the first day of junior high school and sat me down with the principal, the music folk there, and said, hey, this is a great kid. He's got great potential. Look after him. Make sure you get his academic stuff great. And if you do that, then let him participate in the music stuff, and you'll be blown away about what he could do. And so that was kind of cool. So I got handed off and to a man named Charles Drumbore. When people leave a impression on you that 50 years later you can still call their name like it was somebody you met yesterday, kind of thing. And so Charles introduced me to a man at the school who had a little thing that he called peer group counseling. That was what they were trying to do is get some natural network, peacemaking, conflict resolution stuff in the student body, but they also used it for this is Marcus's continuous exploration of himself kind of thing. So he was big into I guess it was Burns, I forget the psychologist's name, was the I'm okay, you okay kind of stuff back in the day. And that was very helpful and useful to me. And interestingly enough, Charles Drumbore took me to high school and did the same thing. And that Charles introduced me to a man named Patrick Matthews, who I'm going to see in a few weeks over Thanksgiving. I'm going back to my hometown for Thanksgiving. And Charles was an adjunct professor at the University of Miami School of Music, where I eventually went to college. That break that occurred for me had somehow serendipitously the march of life had provided me a chaperone, if you will, to kind of walk through the valley of the thing and come out the other side. And so that's the big picture story. Everything else is history that's connected to that, but it's all good history. I'm adjunct to this field, allied to the field, not immersed in the field, as it were. So I think that'd be a fair way to talk about what I'm about. And while I thought I was going to be a musician and with the music school, that kind of stuff, and I still play music today and participate at pretty high level in the industry for a guy who's not full time, I would say that. But that led me to an continuous exploration of, okay, what is this? What does it mean to be human? Okay, I get it. There's good parts and bad parts, and there's other people, and there's things to do. But surely there has to be some purpose or meaning to it. So I got on that journey pretty early in life, and in my 20s, had some interactions with some people who really touched me. It moved me around in a way that I got involved in what I would call the personal development or transformation industry, the pop psychology type stuff. Got very much involved in that kind of stuff. And there were interesting musician person that I'd like to shout out to is a man named Tony Newton, who was Motown's second bass player after James Jamerson. So this cat, actually, pulled me in off the street, homeless in L.A., and invited me into his home. And he was the first black man I ever seen that had more than a few books in his house. In fact, every wall in his apartment was a bookshelf filled with books. I go, what the heck are you doing all these books? He goes, I read them. Okay. So the deal is that I was actually going to house sit for him for a couple of weeks while he went off on the road with Gary Moore, the famous blues guitarist from Europe. And so I stayed in this house, watched this gear, kept the place clean and free of burglaries or whatever. I don't know what he was afraid of, but he let me stay there. So it was like a gift and a favor, but also he got value out of it, and I got to read all of his books. And so when he returned, he took me to meet a man named Manly P. Hall. And Manly Hall was was an extraordinarily gifted writer. Anybody looking at this ought to Google this guy. He's probably written over 3,000 books and pamphlets. And now I thought Tony had a library of over 1,000 books. Manley had a library that was 3 stories deep. Oh my, and a lecture hall where he would hold lectures on philosophy and well, not just philosophy but metaphysics, not just metaphysics, but the esoterics. And so he was well versed, and it was not just him. He had a bunch of great folk coming around. I met Swami Muktananda through that experience, who was an amazing spiritual leader from the kind of Eastern tradition, and had Shakti put and sat with him for a week. So it's those kind of experiences that led me to really not only start to explore personal transformation for myself, but also become a proponent of it, not just an exponent, but proponent, and started to, do workshops and trainings and things like that. So I've been in the trainer consultant space around human development and personal development for the balance of my life since then, and went back to school and got an advanced degree in psychology, focusing right at that point really on consciousness studies, and from a clinical standpoint, then focusing on linguistics, and the impact on mental constructs and memory learning and behavior, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, that kind of stuff. And so I've been doing that kind of work with large groups, small groups, individuals, Fortune 100 companies, Eastman Kodak Company, IBM. It's usually working with the top executives, and my thing was leaders who were worthy of the people who followed them. Becoming worthy leaders, transformational leaders, leaders that could cultivate the best out of folk. And so I did that work for 20 years, and that's really what gave me the kind of life I wanted to live in terms of houses, cars, travel, blah, 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 family, that kind of thing. Along the way, though, one of the key things that I did was I ran into another great cat, great name. Guy's name was Werner Erhard. So he had this big organization going on, and so I participated in some of his regional stuff, and then began to produce big events for him, large events, and it's not just workshops like 200 or 300 people, but in those days, in the 80s, we would have satellite seminars going to 26 to 30 cities at one time with 1,000 people in the room, watching him do stuff with great people and have these great conversations. And I helped them produce and design a piece called Beyond the Winning Formula, which is kind of like my signature piece of work these days. Is some of the leading thinkers in behavioral health got wind of who I am and what I do, and asked me to come in and work with some of their senior most people to kind of talk about the future of behavior health and where it could go, recognizing that my thing was about giving up what has worked for you so well as an adaptation to whatever was going on before, and invent something totally new, like a new road of life to go down that is invented by you. And so I've been spending the last couple of days doing that here. I'm in Chicago, in what I would consider to be one of the poorest, most disenfranchised and marginalized communities in Chicago. You know the name of it. If I called it, you'd know it, but you wouldn't know it that it's now becoming one of the most fertile renaissance of human development, family development, neighborhood recapture, reclaiming from the inside out. How do you have a zip code go from worst to first, and the people who are at the bottom on the worst are still there running, driving, owning stuff, as it goes to first, right? So that's what we're doing there. I'm involved in that space, and my title there is executive director, and what I'm doing is working with actually a theater company. I've shaped what we call a theater for social justice. We might take a storyline like mine, and then go talk to the people who I talked about in the storyline and get their view of what happened, and then write a play about the thing for the through line of the thing, and then have that play teach a particular storyline. But we don't do the art for the art's sake. We do the art in order to then have a dialogue session, a communal engagement, like the kind of the ritual of peace circles around the issues, and to have people tell their truth about not what happened on the stage, but what happened to them in their lives, and how that connects to that storyline, and what they're now able to see for themselves differently, and then make a different choice about who they want to be in the world. Around transformation, and I get to do it and not charge people money for it. Here, I get to give it for free. It's for people changing their lives who have been oppressed, pressed down kind of thing, who want to go from, just returning citizens trying to find their footing in the world, recovering folk trying to, find the right set of circumstances, all that, matter, I'm in the business of bringing your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be fully human. And then let's do that dance. And so that's what I do. I had a life, and it was my life, and then something really bad or terrible happened. And not just once, but many times. And not just many times, but in ways that really damaged me in some way. And that, whatever that collection of experiences was greater than my ability to cope with it. And the damage that was left me with having to do all kinds of things to make that okay with myself. And so alcoholism or addiction becomes the strategy that one does to overcome the thing that you can't overcome. And the alternative to making that choice is usually, dying or not being able to function. So they make that choice, if we could call it a choice. I call that a break in belonging. I think it happens to everybody, but not everybody responds with an adaptation that you might call addiction. But that's one of the ways it could show up. And then, so what I help people do, and my contact here in this space is helping folks come to grips with that break in a profound way, and also create an opening for them to make a choice about who they're going to be with themselves and in the world that allows them to really do 12 steps. Recovery for me is successful living. That's when it's really live again. And whether that means abstinence, that's cool if you can get there. But if that means I'm doing less so I can do more of the good stuff, I'm cool with that too. I don't have a thing about that. And virtually everybody I know is addicted to something.